We're looking at a couple of things here. These are something that are prints of images that are gone. I mean, the original paintings on wooden pallets were destroyed in a big fire, several big fires, back in the 90s. And recently I've been working with a friend of mine, a photographer, and we've been working to, as much as we can, to salvage these things. They're printed on nice 13 by 19 paper, digital. They're digital prints. We worked on the things in Lightroom and a little bit in Photoshop on the computer to get them to a state where they are presentable. In some cases we really revamped them. I mean, the original image was just used as a starting point. The original images were on 35mm slides. And I did the originals when I lived in the old Westmoreland glass factory out at Grapeville, Pennsylvania. I was working on developing the place as living, working, exhibiting space for artists, different kind of artists. We even had architects living there. There was a writer living out there one summer. And there was a lot of found objects, like the background of this is a sign that one time said, "Notice, do not block this doorway," but of course I wiped all that off. And there are all kinds of things. I was taking the skin from the top of a can of paint and I would throw that on there and leave the paint drip and run. And I was finding a lot of stencils out there in the factory. The place was great. I mean, it was a treasure trove of junk and all kind of found objects. And I'd do things like spray through a stencil. And the great work behind this was a screen from a fan. Each one of these has a story, and many of the stories aren't even worth telling. They just have to do with the found objects. This one's called Pro Forma, just because of the name. And Pro Forma just happened to be a name on a stencil that I found in the factory. And there was a lot of old paint out there too. And that was great, having all this old paint and the palettes to work on. The spools that you see in this, these are the spools that came on rolls of roofing material. I had to do a lot of roofing out there because the place was an abandoned factory and a lot of water came in. And if you didn't want to live in a jungle, in an inside jungle, you had to do some roofing. And this one over here is made of 4 different pallets put together. These pallets were not as big as the kind you think of, as the kind that are moved around by tow motors. They were smaller. You can get a sense. These are maybe about 2/3 the size of the original pallets that they were printed on. These are good sized digital printing paper. And some of them had drastic reworking. Like this, the one on the left is one that I reworked that one to the point you'd almost hardly recognize the original it was done with, simply because I didn't really think the original was very successful. And so I just had no concern with salvaging it or preserving it, and I just reworked it. This here on the left is one of my favorites. I really like this one. And again, you see the skin from a paint can, off the top of a paint can. Thrown paint. There was a great big can of that red paint that I found at the old factory. I really like that red paint. And if you're wondering about what you hear in the background, if you hear anything, that's some stuff that I made back around 2004. I won't go as far as to call it music. You may if you want to. But it was just one of those things I did. In background of this one on the left, you have another one of those signs I found in the factory. And the number up there had nothing to do with anything. It was just from a stencil I found in the factory. These things have no real literal meaning. The only meaning they have is visual. I was just working, trying to make what a person might call significant form, if there is such a thing. And I think we're getting close to an end point here. We've seen about 19 of them. That's how many prints there are so far. There are going to be more, but we're still in the process of producing this body of work. And it will one day be finished and perhaps be exhibited. And we're going to wind this up and say so long.